He tapped twice hard, like a man begging. 11 seconds, that's all she needed. 40 men in that room, 40 phones recording. Not one of them saw it coming, because not one of them had ever looked at her. Really looked. They faked her brother's death to break her. They buried her name in classified files. They built 5 years of silence around her like a cage and called it control. She walked into their gym with nothing but a black hoodie and a secret that could destroy everything they built. The cage just opened. She had buried her brother twice. Once when he was dead. Once when she made herself believe it. She was done burying things. Zara Souls sat in the parking lot for 11 minutes. Not because she was scared, not because she was reconsidering. She sat because she was reading the building the way she had been trained to read everything. The angle of the security camera above the entrance, the way the light inside flickered every few seconds. Cheap fluorescent, overdue for replacement. The parking lot had 14 cars, 11 of them trucks. The 2 men who walked out laughing while she watched moved like men who had never once questioned whether a space was theirs. She noted all of it. Then she got out of the car. Her left hand rested at her side as she walked toward the entrance. There was a scar on that wrist, small, shaped like the letter L. She did not touch it. She did not need to. She knew it was there the way you know certain things about yourself. Not because you check. Because they became part of you so long ago that checking would feel strange at Trey's. The smell hit her when she pulled open the heavy glass door. Sweat and rubber mats and something older underneath. The smell of men who had been telling each other they were exceptional for long enough that they had stopped questioning it. The front desk sat just inside. A guy around 25, thick neck, name tag that read Kyle in block letters. He was looking at his phone with the focused energy of someone committed to not looking up. He made her wait. Not long enough. Help you? He said it at his phone screen. Zara put both hands flaccid on the counter. I'm here to sign up. Kyle looked up then. Took his time doing it. His eyes moved over her slowly. The plain black hoodie. The gray sweatpants. No logos. No patches. Nothing to read. He glanced past her shoulder toward the main floor. Then back. You sure you're in the right place? Not a question. A suggestion. The kind designed to give someone an exit before they embarrass themselves. Pretty sure, Zara said. He slid a clipboard across the counter without saying anything else. She filled out the form, standing. Name, address, emergency contact. She left the last field blank. Kyle noticed, did not comment. First class is free, he said, taking the clipboard back. After that, it's a membership. Coach decides if you're a fit. Understood, she said. She walked through the door to the mat. 22 people stopped what they were doing, not all at once, one by one. A ripple moving backward from the entrance. She felt it before she saw it. The way a room recalibrates around a presence it was not expecting. She had felt it before in different rooms. The mechanism was always the same. She stood at the edge of the mat and waited.
Lost, sweetheart?
The voice came from somewhere near the back, a big man with a blue belt and a beard that had probably started as a style choice and become a personality. He laughed at his own joke. The man beside him watched without laughing. Just watched. Zara found a spot near the wall and sat down to stretch. A few minutes later, Coach Harlan Briggs walked in. She had seen his photo on the gym's website. 52, stocky. Black belt lapped around a waist that had thickened since whenever that photo was taken. He had the kind of face that had probably been sure of itself since childhood and had found nothing in the decades since to challenge that certainty. He moved through the room the way a man moves when he has never arrived anywhere and wondered whether he was welcome. He saw her immediately. Well, he said it loud. The room gathered without being told. That kind of gym. Everyone knew their role in the performance. New face. He stopped a few feet from her. Arms crossed, head tilted with the careful angle of a man performing fairness he does not feel. You trained before? Some, Zara said. His mouth moved into something that was not quite a smile. He turned to the room with it still on his face. Some, he said again. Like the word itself was the joke. A few people laughed. The laugh of people who understood their assignment. We don't baby anyone here, Briggs said, turning back to her. This isn't a cardio class, you understand that? Yes, she said. He studied her one more second. Then he clapped his hands and called the room to attention. The class began. The warm-up was forward rolls, backward rolls, shrimping across the mat. Zara watched for 3 seconds and followed. Her movements were clean, not showy, controlled to exactly the degree they needed to be, and no further. The kind of control that looks like competence without announcing itself as mastery. Nobody noticed. Or, if they did, they were not ready to say so yet. "Partner up," Briggs called. The room sorted. Pairs formed fast, the unconscious choreography of people who had done this many times. Nobody moved towards Zara. She stood alone while everyone else found their person. Until Briggs pointed. "Kyle, show her the basics." Kyle gave an exaggerated sigh, loud enough for the room. He trudged over with the energy of someone who had been handed an unwanted task and wanted credit for doing it anyway. "Lucky me," he muttered. The first drill was simple. One from their back, the other the passing guard. Kyle went first. "Put your hands here," he said, positioning her arms with more force than the movement required. "Keep your knees up. Not that it matters. I'm passing anyway." He drove forward hard, his elbow dug into her thigh, more contact than the drill called for. Zara absorbed it, adjusted, made it exactly difficult enough, not difficult. She needed him to feel like he was working. She did not need him to feel outclassed, not yet, not today. He established side control. He looked pleased. When they switched, Zara moved to pass his guard. Clean technique, correct pressure. Kyle felt the shift in his leverage before he understood what was happening, and his face registered surprise. Then determination. He used more strength, started moving harder, bucking his hips. Zara stayed composed, passed to side control with a smoothness that made two nearby pairs pause mid-drill to watch. "Beginner's luck," Kyle said. The edge in his voice was new. She said nothing. They fisset. The class moved through drills, burpees, bear crawl, sprawl, and base. Zara kept pace without struggling. When they moved to positional drilling, she executed a shrimping escape with technical precision that made a nearby purple belt stop and look twice. She caught herself, scaled back, went back to looking like someone with a few years of training, not more. That was discipline. Not just what you could do, what you chose not to show. Briggs walked the room. He paused near her twice, said nothing either time. She noted the pauses. Then the door opened. Brett Kane walked in like a weather system deciding to arrive. 33 years old, built like someone who had spent a decade engineering himself into something. Board shorts, rash guard tight across the chest and shoulders. He moved with the ease of a man who had never entered a room where people were not glad to see him and had stopped imagining such a room existed. Brett, two voices at the same time. He moved through the room, high-fiving his way across it. His eyes found Zara immediately. He stopped. Did a slow theatrical scan of the gym, looking behind her like he was searching for whoever had brought her. Like she must have come with someone. Like coming alone would not have occurred to her. "Yo, coach," he said it with a grin spreading wide. "Is this take your daughter to work day or did I miss something?" Laughter. More than the joke deserved. Briggs smirked. "New member. Says she's trained some." Brett's eyes moved back to Zara. He tilted his head. The look of someone who has already filed something under irrelevant and is simply confirming the categorization. "Don't go easies on her then," he said. "Wouldn't want her getting the wrong idea about what this place is." He found his spot, started warming up, did not look at her again. Zara looked straight ahead. Her breathing was even. Her hands were relaxed at her sides, but something behind her eyes had quietly made a note. The kind of note that does not need to be written down because it is not going anywhere. The rest of class was physical in the way designed to sort people. Conditioning rounds, takedown drilling, positional sparring. By the end, Zara's hoodie was soaked through. Her breathing was steady. Her feet stayed under her. She looked tired, not beat. Those are different things. As people filtered toward the locker rooms, a voice appeared beside her. She turned. Devin Osei, 24 years old, white belt, maybe 5'10", with a face that was still in the process of deciding what kind of man it was going to settle into. He was holding out a small ice pack. "Your shoulder," he said. "Kyle went too hard on that first drill. He does that with everyone new." He glanced over his shoulder quickly, dropped his voice. "Devin, you did good today." Zara looked at him. "Good? Like you didn't fold," he said it simply. "They usually do. The new people who look like you. People who look like me," she said. Devin shifted his weight. "People they don't think belong here." He nodded toward a whiteboard mounted on the wall. "Rankings, 20 names, all men, every single one. I've been here 8 months, they still treat me like I'm visiting." He said it the way you say a fact that has stopped surprising you, just so you know what you're walking into. Zara took the ice pack. "Thanks. You coming back?" he asked. Before she could answer, a voice cut across the room. "Devin, Brett Kane's voice, flat and easy and sharp underneath. He was toweling off his neck, watching them. Making friends with the fresh meat? Devon went quiet. His whole body seemed to find a smaller configuration of itself. The practiced reduction of someone who has learned that less is sometimes the safest response. Just being polite, he said. Sure you are. Brett walked past. His shoulder caught Devon hard enough to make him stumble. He did not look back. Zara watched. Devon straightened up, would not meet her eyes. She walked out without saying anything, because sometimes what you don't say is more important than what you do. And because she had seen that stumble, she had seen Devon's body go small. She had filed that too. The apartment was quiet that night, not peaceful. The way a room is quiet when the person who used to fill it is no longer there. She dropped her bag by the door, turned on one lamp in the corner. The apartment had almost no furniture. A couch, a small table, a bookshelf with a few paperbacks and a coffee mug she kept meaning to move. On the top shelf, a wooden box, dark wood with a small brass latch, the size of a shoebox, locked. She looked at it on her way to the kitchen, did not stop. She made tea she was not going to finish, sat at the table, opened her laptop. 2 words, Eli Cole. The results were the same as always, a news article from 4 years ago. A military record marked incomplete. A Facebook post from someone she did not know about a funeral she had not attended, because there'd been no body killed in it. March 2019, location. So she stared at the screen. She had read those words enough times that they no longer felt like language. They felt like a shape, something she had pressed herself against so many times the edges had worn smooth. She closed the laptop, got up, moved the coffee table against the wall, stood in the center of the room, and she started to move. Not because she wanted to, because she needed to. At a certain hour of the night, when the thing you carry gets heavy enough, you have to move or it presses you flat. She drilled takedown entries, escapes, transitions from bad positions to less bad ones. Her body moved through the sequences the way water finds the downhill path, not thinking, remembering. She trained until her legs were tired. Then she lay down on the floor because it was closer than the couch, listened to the rain against the window, slept. 3 days later, she walked back into Briggs Combat Academy. She set her credit card on Kyle's counter and said membership. He looked at the card, looked at her. You sure? You going to run it or not? He ran it. She went to the mat. Today, the gym had a different quality. Briggs watched her from the moment she walked in, not the casual surveillance of the first day. Something deliberate. Waiting. He paired her with Rocco, brown belt, 6'2". A set of shoulders that had been answering questions since he was 16. He stood at the edge of the mat with his arms loose, his expression carrying the professional neutrality of a man who had done this before and was not particularly interested in what happened next. Don't worry, he said, loud enough for the audience that had quietly assembled. I'll take it easy. The room appreciated that. They started. Rocco came forward immediately with a double leg that was more tactical than technique. Zara hit the mat hard, got up, took her stance, second attempt. She sprawled, correct timing, stopped his momentum. His expression shifted, third attempt. She shot a single leg, caught his base for a genuine moment before he recovered by wrapping her up and using size to put her down. That last counter, she said quietly as they reset. That wasn't technique. That was just bigger. Rocco looked at her. Works once, she said. Something moved behind his eyes, not anger, something more careful than that. They reset. The groundwork portion came next. Briggs demonstrated an armbar from guard, walked through the mechanics, set the room to drilling. Control is the point, he said, moving through the pairs. Tap F before you feel pain, not after. We don't snap arms here. He let his gaze drift to Zaza just long enough to be intentional. Most of us, anyway. The room heard it. Paired again with Rocco, he went for the armbar fast and cranked it with a sudden force that sent pain shooting up her elbow. She did not tap. Instead, she executed technical escape that should not have been possible from that position. A rotation, a specific weight transfer, and her arm came free through a window that had not existed until she created it. Rocco's face opened completely. Genuine surprise, then something harder behind it. Lucky, he said. Sure, she said, sick. 3 more reps. Each time call escalated. As the time Zara matched him with precision that frustrated him more than losing would have. Because losing to strength made sense. Losing to technique meant something was being demonstrated. and he could feel it being demonstrated without being able to name what it was. The class moved to King of the Hill. One person holds the mat. Challengers step in one at a time. You stay until you're submitted. Devon got pushed to the center. 3 challengers, 3 fast submissions. The commentary from the sidelines got louder with him in each one. Maybe try the beginner's workshop, bro. Come on, Devon, you're killing me here. Devon kept getting up every time. That was the thing nobody seemed to notice. He kept standing up, jaw forward, eyes on the mat. When Zara stepped up to face him, the room shifted catcalls. Phones going up. Someone said, "Oh, this should be good," in the voice of someone who had already written what happened next. She let Devon work. Let him establish positions she could have countered before he finished building them. When she gained an advantage, she whispered, "Frame your elbow here, that's it. Now, bridge." Devon felt the opening. Took it. Found himself on top. The room erupted. Mockery mostly. But underneath the mockery was something confused and unsteady. Something that did not hang it because nobody in the room was ready to give it one. Brett's voice cut through. "Don't let her set that up, Devon. Come on." Actually embarrassing. Devon kept his eyes on the mat, jaw still forward. Zara saw that, filed it with everything else. Class ended. The room began to empty. She was retying her shoes near the edge of the mat when she heard voices through Briggs's office door, cracked 2 inches. She did not move toward it. She did not need to. "Briggs, she's got real training, more than she's showing. Brett, doesn't matter. Let her have her moment." "Briggs, she's not the right fit. This gym has a culture, a standard. Brett, I'll handle it. Give me until Friday. She'll be gone." Zara finished tying shoe, stood up, walked to the exit and through it, into the parking lot where the evening air was cold and she breathed it in slow and even. Friday. She stood at her car for a moment. Her mouth did something that was not quite a smile. More like a decision settling into the place where it was going to live. The women's locker room at Briggs was a converted storage space with 1 shower and 2 hooks on the wall. She was packing a bag when the door opened. Sloane Briggs came in, 28 years old, purple belt, dark hair pulled back with the efficiencies of someone who had stopped caring about how it looked during training and started caring about keeping it out of the way. She moved through the small space with the particular awareness of a person who had grown up inside something and understood it the way you understand a house you have lived in long enough to know which floorboards make noise. She sat on the bench across from Zara, did not speak immediately. Zara kept packing. "You've trained before," Sloane said. It was not a question. "Some," Zara said. Sloane's mouth pressed together. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Set it on the bench between them. "Open mat times. Before my uncle gets in." Zara looked at the paper, looked at Sloane. "Why?" she said. Sloane met her eyes. Her voice was quiet and level. "Because I've been here 4 years and I've watched him do this to people. The ones who don't fit what he thinks this place should be." She picked up her bag and zipped it with a finality that meant the subject was not open for expansion. "And because I'm tired of knowing things and not doing anything with them." She stopped at the door, turned back once. When someone makes a exprit bagab, they make that person very sorry they did." Then she was gone. Zalara stood alone in the small room. She picked up the paper, read it once, folded it back exactly as it had been and put it in her pocket. She used the morning times on Sloane's list. Before 7. The gym nearly empty. A few serious students drilling in their own worlds. No Brett, no Briggs, no audience to perform for or conceal herself from. She moved differently when there was no audience. Not dramatically differently, but her footwork opened up. Her transitions flowed without the small hesitations she had been building into her movement during regular classes. She used techniques that did not exist as a curriculum on Briggs' whiteboard. Things from a system that did not have a public name. Her entries were precise in a way that spoke of repetition counted in the thousands, in conditions most of the people in this gym could not have imagined. During one morning session, she used a sweep stroke that put her flat on his calf's back in a way that clearly surprised him. He looked up at her from the mat. "Where did you learn that?" he said. "Around," she said. He nodded slowly. The nod of someone who understood they had been given a non-answer on purpose and had decided to respect it. She helped him up. Thursday morning, Devon caught her in the parking lot after the open mat session ended. He had been waiting. She could see it in the way he was standing, the way people stand when they have rehearsed what they are going to say and are waiting for the moment to say it. "I need to tell you something," he said. He was checking the angles around them. She recognized that. Situational awareness does not develop for no reason. "Tell me," she said. "People who've embarrassed Brett before." He stopped, started again with the specific restart of someone getting to the real thing. He doesn't just let them leave. He makes sure they don't want to come back. One guy had his car keyed. Another got accused of something during training, completely made up. But the story followed him anyway. Someone else had their employer contacted with things that weren't true. He looked at her steadily. He keeps going until the person decides it's not worth it. "Why are you still here?" Zara said. Devin was quiet for a moment, long enough that it was real thinking and not a pause for effect. "No other gym for 30 miles, he said, and he stopped again. "I need this. I get pushed around everywhere else here. At least the pushing has rules." He looked at the ground, most of the time. She almost laughed. It was almost funny, the way certain true things are. "Thanks for the warning," she said. He nodded, started to leave, came back. "I've been recording things," he said, quieter now. "On my phone. Comments Briggs makes during class that he thinks are jokes. Brett's thing last week, I grabbed my locker room, some text screenshots." He looked at her directly. "Just in case," Zara looked at him. "That's not safe if they find out," she said. "Probably not," he agreed. One shoulder shrugged. "But I figure someone should be keeping track, since nobody else is." She studied him, the set of his jaw, the steadiness behind his eyes that had not been there on the first day. He had been pushed around long enough that he had found a way to push back that did not require him to be bigger, that did not require anything except paying attention and remembering. "Keep it backed up somewhere they can't reach," she said. He nodded. They walked to their separate cars. No handshake, no ceremony. Just two people who had understood each other clearly enough that saying so would have been less than the understanding itself. That evening, Zara sat in her car in the gym parking lot long after the lights inside had gone dark. The rain came back, soft and patient. It came down on the windshield, and she watched it blur the lights of the building across the street into shapes that almost meant something. She sat while her options the way she had been trained to sit with them, without sentiment. What she could do, what each choice would cost, what it would produce. She could find another gym, further away. She has started over in new places before. She was good at it. She could file a complaint with someone who might eventually do something with it. Or she could stay. Not because anyone had asked. Not because it was the most tactically efficient choice. Because Devin kept showing up even when they made him small. Because Sloane was tired of knowing things and staying quiet. Because somewhere in this building was a version of something true she recognized. The kind of truth that does not announce itself. The kind you find by staying in the room. Zara Cole had never been able to walk away from that kind of truth. She got out of the car, used her key card, let herself in. The motion sensors clicked and light spread across the empty mat in sequence, the building announcing her to the empty room. She stood at the center of it, water dripping from her jacket onto the mat. She looked at the whiteboard, 20 names, all men. She looked at the door to Briggs's trail where she saw the Challenge Night poster would appear. "You don't get to scare me off," she said. Her voice was quiet, factual, not theatrical, just true. "I've seen real war." She stood there one moment more. Then she began to move, shadow drilling, alone. The motion sensors making the light follow her as she moved through the empty gym. She moved like herself, the way she only moved when no one was watching, like what she actually was. The Challenge Night poster appeared Monday morning. She saw it when she came in for the morning session. Handwritten, Brett Kane versus All Comers, special event. Friday 8 p.m. The word comers crossed out at the bottom and replaced with something she did not read twice. She looked at it for 3 seconds, walked past it, found Devin in the corner. He was watching her face. "You saw it," he said. "I saw it. What are you going to do?" She started wrapping her hands. The motion was slow and methodical. She had wrapped her hands so many times in her life that her hands knew how to do it without being told. "I'm going to be there Friday." Devin stared at her. They've done this before. The setup, the ref, the environment. Everything is going to be arranged to make sure. Devin. He stopped. "I know what an unfair fight looks like," she said. "I've been inside them." She smoothed the last strip of tape down, looked at her wrapped hands. Brett Kane has been afraid of a fair fight because he has never had to face one that is actually the problem. Devon was quiet for a moment. "What do you want me to do?" he said. She glanced at him sideways, the smallest possible version of something that was not quite a smile. "Charge your phone," she said. Wednesday morning, she had the open mat almost entirely to herself. She was an hour into her session, moving through sequences she had drilled in months when the side door opened. A man walked in, not in a gi, not in workout clothes, plain gray shirt, dark pants, work boots. He was compact in late 40s, and his face had been in difficult outdoor conditions long enough for that to be permanent. Close-cropped hair going silver at the temples. A scar running along his jaw, healed, clean, and old. He stood just inside the door. Zasma was moving. Their eyes met across the empty gym. Something spasmed between them. Not recognition. Something older than recognition. The way two people sometimes look at each other and understand before any words happen that they have existed inside the same world. Not the visible one. The one that does not have a publicly available name. He held her gaze. 3 seconds exactly. Then he nodded once and left. She stood in the empty gym after the door closed. The motion sensor light hummed above her. Her heart was doing something it had not done in a long time. Not fear, not excitement. The specific feeling that comes when you are in a room and the air pressure shifts before anything visible has changed. Before any door you can see has opened, but something has. She stood with that feeling for a long moment. Then she walked back to the center of the mat and kept drilling, because that was the discipline. It kept training when everything was certain. You kept training when nothing was certain. Especially when nothing was certain. The training was the one thing that did not depend on what happened next. Friday came the way large things sometimes come. Not with thunder, not dramatically, just quietly. A morning that looked like any other morning, the particular cruelty of significant days refusing to announce themselves. Zara drove to the gym at noon. She sat outside for 2 minutes. She was done with the long reckonings, done sitting with things that had already been decided. She went inside. Kyle looked up this time without being prompted. There was something different in his face. The specific awkwardness of a person who has been unkind to someone and is now watching circumstances suggests they may have miscalculated. "Tonight's going to be a crowd," he said. "I know," she said. She walked through to the mat, found her spot, sat, started wrapping her hands. Students arrived early. The electricity that had been building all week finally sat something solid attached to. She heard her name in conversations nearby, did not look up. She was thinking about her apartment, about the wooden box on the shelf, about what was inside it, and why she had never been able to put it somewhere. She could not see it from the couch. She was thinking about Eli, about a version of herself 10 years younger, 22 years old, sitting in a different kind of room, before a different kind of test, with her hands wrapped sat the same way and the same low feeling in her chest. Not fear exactly. The feeling that lives just underneath fear in people who have decided that fear is not going to be the deciding factor. She had been younger then. She had not known yet what she was capable of. She knew now. She finished wrapping her right hand, flexed her fingers. The tape settled into place, clean and firm. 7 o'clock, 1 hour. She closed her eyes, breathed in, breathed out. She was ready. By 7:30, the gym was full in a way it had never been full before. Not normal Friday full. Something different. Something that had been building since Monday when the poster went up. And Brett posted a video online that Zara had not watched but had heard quoted back to her 3 times since. People standing along every wall because all the chairs had been pushed to the edges. A spot someone had dragged from somewhere, casting a hard white circle on the center of the mat. Phones already out and ready, held loosely by people who expected this to be easy and quick and satisfying. Zara sat in the far corner and counted. 41 people by her estimate. More filtering in through the back entrance every few minutes. Faces she recognized from class. Faces she had never seen. People who had been told that this was worth showing up for. All of them waiting for the same story. The one where things stayed the way they were. Devon appeared at her elbow. He looked like he had run the last block. Jacket half unzipped. Phone already in his hand. Already thinking about angles. "You okay?" he said. "Fine," she said. "There's more people than I thought there would be." "Good," she said. He looked at her the way he had been looking at her all week. like he was waiting for her to reveal something that would make the situation make more sense. You keep saying things like that, and I keep not knowing what to do with them. Keep your phone up, she said. Whatever happens. All of it. He nodded and moved off to find his position, working his way through the crowd to a spot near the corner of the mat where the angle would be clean without being obvious. She watched him go. He was getting better at that, making himself useful without making himself a target. It was a skill that looked simple from the outside and was not simple at all. At 7:50, Brett Kane walked in. The room responded the way rooms respond to people who have trained them to respond that way over a long period of time. A collective exhale, a loosening, the relief of a crowd that has been waiting for the main event and has finally seen it arrive. He came through the door in a custom rash guard, dark fabric. Block letters across the back she could not read from across the room. He did not need to perform confidence. It was not a performance. It was just what he was, or what he had become so completely that the difference no longer mattered. He moved through the crowd unhurried, greeting people, laughing at something a man near the door said, the ease of someone for whom every room has always been the right room. He worked his way around the edge of the space, fist bumps, a full embrace with someone she did not recognize, and then he found her with his eyes naked, across the room, through all the people between them. He looked at her the way you look at something you have already solved. 14 seconds, he called out, loud enough that the whole room could hear and was meant to hear. That's all she's getting. Laughter. Someone near the back yelled something that got swallowed by the noise, but the crowd caught the spirit of it. Zara looked at him for one moment, then she looked away. Not because she was intimidated, because she was finished. There was nothing left to observe, as if she had everything she needed. Briggs stepped to the center of the mat at 8 o'clock. He was wearing his black belt around his waist, not in a gi. A polo shirt with the gym's logo on the chest. The belt was the message. He wanted it in the frame of every video being shot tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, he spread his arms. The crowd quieted because it wanted to. Welcome to Challenge Night. Cheers, genuine ones. Tonight we do what this gym has always done. He moved through the words with the practiced ease of someone who has given versions of this speech before. We test ourselves. We find out what is real and what is just talk. He paused, looked toward Zara with the careful warmth of a man who wants to appear generous on camera. Our newest member has put in some time on this mat, and tonight she finds out what that time is worth. He gestured toward Brett, against someone who has been the answer to every question this gym has ever asked. More cheers, louder this time. Terms are simple. 1 round, submission only, no time limit. His eyes moved to Zara and the warmth in them left completely, replaced by something flat and certain. Winner stays. Loser finds somewhere better suited to their level. The room buzzed. Devon's camera light was a small, steady green dot in her peripheral vision. She stood and walked to the center of the mat. Brett was already there. Up close, he was bigger than the mat made him look during regular training, 4 inches and close to 60 pounds. The specific mass of a body that has been developed deliberately over many years and responds to that development in the way not everyone's does. He was very good. She had never doubted that. Underestimating him would have been its own kind of mistake. Briggs stepped between them. One hand went to Brett's shoulder bare. His eyes settled on Zara. I want a clean match, he said, the word clean carrying a second meaning he did not bother to hide from her. Brett extended his hand. Formal. The handshake of a man performing sportsmanship for the crowd. Zara took it, firm, brief. Brett leaned in close enough that only she could hear. Don't cry when I break something. She said nothing. Briggs stepped back. Begin. Brett circled immediately, fast and controlled, hands up, feinting forward with quick movements designed to test her reaction time. He was reading her. She could see him doing it, the way his eyes moved from her feet to her hands to her hips and back. Professional, serious. He had taken one look at what happened in class all week and decided the performance was over. She gave him nothing, pivoted, maintained distance. 6 seconds. Stop dancing, take her down. Brett shot, double leg, hard out fast and fully committed, good level change. His hips low, his drive forward powerful. The kind of takedown that worked because he was good at it and had landed it on people who were better than most. Zara sprawled. Her hips dropped back and down. Her chest came forward and over him. Her weight landed across his shoulders before he had finished the shot. His momentum stopped. not redirected, stopped, and in the fraction of a second, while his body was processing the failure of the attempt, whilst the signal was traveling from his legs to his brain that something had gone wrong, she moved. Her right arm went under his neck. Her left arm controlled his trapped arm against her body. She turned and her legs came up and closed around the back of his nab's neck and his trapped arm. Triangle choke. The geometry was as exact. Both carotid arteries compressed by the angle of her legs. Not a sloppy lock, not a lucky catch. A clean, precise, intentional triangle from a sprawl, which was not something most people had ever seen in real time. He felt it immediately. His hands changed, from pushing forward to trying to pry her legs apart. The shift from completing a technique to surviving one. His face darkened, blood slowing to the brain, the specific darkening that happens in a properly applied blood choke. He tapped, once, hard. Against her leg, she released immediately. Clean, no delay. The room did not cheer. The room went silent. It was the specific silence of 41 people experiencing the same cognitive disruption at the same time. The silence of a story failing to end the way everyone in the room had agreed it would end. Brett sat up, put one hand to his neck. His face moved through several things in quick succession. Confusion. The disorientation of a body whose blood supply has briefly been interrupted. And then underneath both of those, working its way up, something she recognized. The particular expression of a person whose world has just reorganized itself without asking permission. Match. He said it before he was fully upright. That was a fluke. She caught me off guard. Briggs recovered faster than the room. Yes, restart. You caught him transitioning. Fine, Zara said. Ivan from the corner. Both thumbs up. She did not acknowledge it. The crowd found its voice again, but it was different now. The easy certainty was gone from it. Something more complicated had moved in. Phones that had been held loosely were gripped tight now. People were recording who had not planned to record anything because they had not planned on there being anything worth recording. Brett came back to center. The swagger was gone. What replaced it was something she actually respected. He was serious now. The performance had dropped completely away, and what was underneath it was a competitive man who had been caught and had no intention of being caught the same way twice. He was recalibrating in real time, adjusting his model based on new information. That was a real skill. It just was not going to be enough tonight. Begin, Briggs said. This time Brett was careful. He circled longer, 2 full rotations before he committed to anything. He feinted twice without following through. She could see him doing the math, trying to work out what she had shown him and factor it into his approach. He was a good athlete, a real one. She noted it the way you note true things. When he finally committed, he went for a single leg, lower, tighter. He had corrected the overcommitment from the first attempt. He was on its side the match. That was not nothing. She sprawled again, but different this time. Instead of creating separation, she used his momentum, let him think he had her base for a half second, and sat back to pull him into guard. He drove forward, using weight now, his face inches from hers. Teeth set, a low continuous sound of effort. To anyone watching, it looked like he was winning, the size and tries and ring pressure of a bigger body asserting itself. That was the thing about this. It always looked like the bigger person was about to win, right until they were not. She shifted her hips, a small movement, precise. It compromised his balance in a way he did not feel until it had already happened, until the correction he needed to make was already a moment behind him. Her legs moved. She was on top. The transition was too fast and too small for casual observation. One moment he had top position. The next, she had mount, his right arm trapped between their bodies before he registered the change. She extended. The armbar was textbook. Her legs across his shoulders, her hips lifting, the joint bending against its design with a geometric certainty that no amount of physical strength could argue with, because strength was not the relevant variable. He tapped immediately. The pain did not negotiate. 11 seconds, the room came apart. Not in the way it had been constructed to come apart. Not the triumphant certain roar for the hometown champion. Something louder and less organized and stranger than that. Shock finding the only exit available to it, which was volume. Brett scrambled upright. His mouth was already moving. She cheated. He said it at the room, at Briggs, at the air above the mat. That was. She cheated. The problem was that everyone in the room had just watched it happen. Twice. On a dozen different phones from a dozen different angles. Both submissions clean and visible, and completely within the rules of the sport. There was no version of cheating available that fit what they had all just seen. Briggs had gone a color she did not have a name for. His mouth moved without producing words for a moment. "Nobody taps Brett," he said finally. Quiet. Like he was telling himself something he needed to hear. "Nobody taps him." Zozora stood in the center of the mat. Her breathing was barely elevated. "Free year's membership," she said. She said it to Briggs directly. That was the deal. Devon was already moving through the crowd toward her, phone in hand, his face carrying an expression she had not seen on him before. Not triumph exactly. Something cleaner than triumph. The look of a person who has been waiting a long time for the world to make sense in a particular way and has just watched it do so. "I got it all," he said when he reached her. "Both of them. Clean angle. You can see everything." From the direction of the men's locker room, a crash, metal, on concrete, the specific sound of a large thing being put through a wall or into a locker with force that had nothing to do with the object and everything to do with what was behind it. Brett's voice through the door, loud enough to carry over the ambient noise of 41 people all talking at once. "Nobody told me she was trained. This was set up. The whole thing." Sloane appeared at Zara's side. Her face was doing something careful. The face of a person holding several things at once. "I don't have a word for what that was," she said. Then lower, "But you need to understand something. Brett doesn't lose. Not here. When he doesn't know how to hold something, he makes it someone else's problem." She glanced toward the locker room door. "This is going to get personal." Zara picked up her bag. "He's not entirely wrong," she said quietly, "about being set up. He's just wrong about who did it to him." Sloane looked at her sharply, a quick and searching look. Zara walked out before she could form a question around it. Outside, the air was cold, and she breathed it in slowly and deliberately. Devon caught up halfway to the parking lot and fell into step beside her. "I'm going to post it," he said. She kept walking. "Your video. Your call. People need to see this." He said it with a certainty that was new on him, the certainty of someone who has just found the ground under their feet after a long time of not being sure it was there. Not just because of Brett, because there are other gyms like this one, other people being pushed out of spaces they have every right to be in. He looked at his phone, at the footage, then at her, other Devons. She stopped at her car, looked at him. "Back it up to 3 places before you post," she said. He nodded. She got in the car and sat with her hands on the wheel for a moment. Not triumph, not relief, something quieter. The particular stillness that settles in after you have done what you went somewhere to do, and the doing is finished, and what comes next has not started yet. She drove home. By midnight, the video had 40,000 views. She sat on her couch with the laptop open and watched the number move. Not because she was proud of it, because she was tracking it the way you track anything that might become relevant. The comments were mostly noise, but she had been trained to read noise for signal, and she read all of it. At 12:43, a comment appeared from an account with no profile photo and a username that was a random string of letters and numbers. "It's Ghost, trained alongside her once at a facility I can't name in a program that no longer officially exists. Good luck trying to submit her. She don't show up in any public record, but she's very real." Zara went still. She read it twice. Below it, from a different account with the same anonymous structure, reply appeared while she was reading. "Check your email, Zara." Her name, not her username, not a handle or a screen name or any version of an online identity. Her actual name. The one that existed in the databases she had spent years staying out of. She closed the laptop, opened her phone, one new email, unknown sender, no subject line, one image attached. She sat with the phone in her hand for a moment. Her breathing was even. Her hands were steady. These were things she could still choose. She opened the attachment. The image loaded slowly, low resolution, taken on an older device or from a distance and compressed. A street. American. She knew it immediately from the architecture, the signage, the cars parked along the curb, a residential neighborhood in some mid-sized city. Clear daylight, ordinary afternoon. A man walking on the sidewalk. She knew the shape of him before her brain had finished processing the image. The way he held his shoulders, the angle of his head when he was moving with purpose, the small habit he had carried since childhood of keeping his hands slightly away from his body, barely perceptible, a thing he did without knowing he did it. Eli, her brother, alive, walking down a street in an American city. Thinner than she remembered, harder around the eyes than she remembered, with the look of someone who had been inside something difficult for a very long time, and had developed the specific posture of a person who has learned to live inside difficult things. Alive. The timestamp in the corner of the image read September 14, 24, 5 years after the government told her he was dead. She looked at his hands, left hand specifically. The position of his index and middle fingers pressed together, ring finger slightly raised, thumb in against his palm, a signal something they had made up together when they were children, a private language they had carried into adulthood and into the work they did together without ever formally deciding to keep it. It meant, I am alive, do not look for me the obvious way. Zazara set the phone down on the couch beside her, looked at the ceiling. She did not cry. She had not cried in a long time. Not from hardness. From a particular kind of exhaustion that lives past the place where tears live. The exhaustion of carrying something for so long that you have stopped registering it as weight, because it has simply become the shape of you. She picked the phone back up, looked at the photo again, at his face, at his hands. 5 years of a grave with no body in it. 5 years of training alone, at hours when no one was watching, trying to outrun something she could not name, because naming it would have meant accepting it completely, and she had never been able to do that entirely. Some part of her had never fully believed it, and she had spent 5 years not knowing whether that part was wisdom or just the refusal to accept a true thing. He was alive. Someone wanted her to know that. The question was why now, and what they wanted her to do with it. She did not sleep again that night. By 6 in the morning, the video had 280,000 views. She made coffee and stood at the window and watched the neighborhood do the ordinary things neighborhoods do in the early morning while everything falls apart. A man walking a dog, a woman starting a car, traffic beginning to build. Her phone had accumulated messages she did not look at yet. When she finally checked, 5 were from Devon. First. Second, 100K views. Third, millions of people in the comments recognizing the technique. Fourth, they keep using a name I haven't heard before. Fifth, who is Ghost? She put the phone in her pocket and drove. Agent Ray Tolliver lived 40 minutes outside the city in a house that announced nothing about the person inside it. Small, maintained without being personalized. F's kind landscaping that existed to satisfy a homeowners association rather than to express anything. The home of someone who had learned a long time ago that personal things were liabilities. She rang the bell at 9:15. He opened the door before she finished pressing it. Ray Tolliver was 56 years old and built like a former athlete who had slowed down but not softened. Dark skin, silver at the temples, the kind of eyes that had been trained for so long to reveal nothing that even at rest they were measuring everything. He had been her handler during the years of her life that did not appear in any official record. He had known her when she was becoming what she became. He had watched it happen with the professional detachment of someone whose job was to observe and assess us, and he has also, she believed, been proud of her in the way people are proud of things they helped build. He looked at her now and said, "You've been busy. Can I come in?" He stepped back. Inside was what she expected, sparse, a few books, no photographs. No personal objects on any surface. The home of someone who had made peace with the idea that comfort was something other people organized their lives in. He poured coffee without asking, set it in front of her at the kitchen table and sat across from her. She put her phone on the table and turned the screen toward him. The photo of Eli. He looked at it. He looked at it for a long time without speaking. "Is it real?" she said. Ray set his coffee down. "Yes," he said, one word. She had spent 9 hours building a careful structure around herself before this moment, constructing the expectations methodically so that when the answer came, it would not knock her flat. She had done everything right. It still landed like something physical. "How long have you known?" she said. "I had suspicions from the beginning." He folded his hands onto the table, not to hide them, just to have something to do with them. The retrieval operation after the incident was shut down in 36 hours. That is not how those operations work. The paperwork cleared too fast, too clean. He looked at her steadily. 18 months after the official declaration, I saw his identifier appear in a system I still have access to, flagged as active. "Someone brought him back in," she said. "Someone with clearance took a declared asset and put him back to work. Off the books, no oversight, no trail to follow." He paused. There's this internal language for it, an unauthorized resurrection. An operative who is dead on paper but operational in practice. Zara was quiet. Who? She said. Colonel Aldrich Shaw. She knew the name, had known it for years. Shaw had been at the edges of the program she and Eli had trained through. Never her direct commanding officer. Always peripheral. Always present in the way certain kinds of power are present, not in the center of the room, but in the quality of attention the room received from outside. Why fake Eli's death, she said. Why not simply remove him from the program quietly? Ray looked at her steadily, because they needed something to keep him in line, and they needed something to keep you quiet. She held his gaze. You were the harder one to manage, he said. Better instincts, more independent. The kind of person who asks the questions that make certain operations impossible to run. Your brother was the pressure point. He says it without apology because it was not a thing he was offering apology for, just facts assembled in front of her. As long as you believed he died in an operation you survived, you carried that, and people carrying that kind of weight tend to look inward, not outward, not at the people who made the choices. The room was very still. You knew this, she said. How long? Ray was quiet, then 2 years. She nodded. Once, the nod of someone receiving a confirmation of something they had already known was coming, and had not let themselves know they knew. You should have told me, she said. I didn't have enough to act on, and he stopped himself. Scared, she said. He did not deny it. She picked up her coffee, shrank some, set it down, let the silence sit between them for a moment. The photo, she said. Who sent it? That is the thing that concerns me most. Ray leaned forward slightly. Shaw does not want you looking. Pasha has invested 5 years in keeping you where you have been. Quiet, carrying your grief, looking inward. He held her gaze. Sending you that photo is the opposite of what Shaw would do, which means someone inside his network sent. Someone who wants Shaw exposed and has decided you are the instrument for doing it. Because the video made me visible, she said. Shaw cannot touch you publicly right now. You have more eyes on you than he can operate around. He exhaled slowly, but visible cuts both ways. He will wait. He is patient. Zara thought about the man at the gym Wednesday morning, the gray at his temples, the scar along the jaw. She described him to Ray. Ray's expression shifted in a way she clocked, but could not fully read. I don't know who that is, he said. She was not completely sure she believed him, but she let it go. There were things she would need to chase herself. She drove back to the city with the windows down, even though it was cold. She needed something to push back against. She needed the physical fact of the air. Eli was alive. Shaw had him, or had been using him, or both. Someone inside Shaw's network was working against him and had chosen her as the means. She was not the target. She was the instrument. She turned that over. She did not but she understood the structure of it, and she was beginning to understand something else. The gym, Briggs, Brett Kane, challenge night, the video, the viral moment that had made her visible to hundreds of thousands of people in the span of 12 hours. None of it felt random anymore. 2 days after the match, she arrived at the gym to find the atmosphere changed in the way a room changes after power has shifted, and everyone is still pretending they have not noticed. Students nodded when she entered. A few approached with genuine technical questions, the kind that meant they had been watching the footage on their phones and thinking about what they saw. The mockery was gone. In its place was the careful recalibration of people who have updated their understanding of something and are still working out what the update means. Brett was absent. Briggs was absent. A handwritten note on the schedule said Briggs was handling a family matter, and classes were covered by assistant instructors through the week. Devin was waiting in the corner with his laptop. 600,000, he said when she sat down. I know, she said. And these. He turned the laptop toward her. The comment threads, the military community recognizing technique, the name appearing over and over in different forms. And one thread he had found on a forum that was not publicly accessible. She looked at what was on the screen, thread titles she recognized, references to a program with an operational name she recognized, references to assets and operations and an outcome she recognized from inside it. Devin, she said very calmly, close that. But the people who run that forum will know someone accessed it. They may already. She looked at him directly. Close it now. He closed it. His face had changed. What is that? Something that has been following me since before I walked into this gym, she said. Something that is not for you to be inside. He was quiet for a moment, processing. Is that why you came here? He said. Not just to train. I came to train, she said. What else is it here? Follow did not plan for it. She looked at him steadily, but I am not going to run from it. That afternoon her phone buzzed, unknown number. No area code she recognized. 4 words and a link to an email. Check your email again. She opened it. No image this time. Just coordinates, a location in Nevada, and below the coordinates, 3 words. Come find it. She sat in her car in the parking lot and held that information for 10 minutes. Nevada. 13 hours by road, a decommissioned facility that had not been officially active since 2011. She thought about what Ray had said. Traps tell you what the trapper is afraid of. She put her phone away and went to find Devin and Sloan. They met that evening at a diner 4 blocks from the gym. Sloan arrived first. Devin came 3 minutes later with a backpack. It looks some already suspected they were about to agree to something that would change them in ways they could not predict. Zaraza told them what she needed to tell them. Not everything. But enough. Eli, Shaw, the photo, Ray Tolliver, and what he had confirmed. The way the gym and the video and the coordinates all connected to something that had started years before any of them walked into Briggs Combat Academy. She told them what she planned to do. Silence at the table. Devin spoke first. That's obviously a trap. Yes, said. So then why? Because a trap shows me what they're afraid of, she said. And right now, that is the most important thing I need to know. Sloan had been quiet through the whole thing. She spoke now, and her voice is the voice of someone who has been turning something over for a long time and has finally found the angle that makes it speakable. My uncle is part of this. Yes, Zara said. The cash, the private sessions, the texts with Shaw. Sloan's jaw was set. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how far it went. Now you know. Sloan nodded once. No, Zara said. Yes, Sloan said, the single syllable with the flatness underneath it that ended the conversation before it started. He is my uncle. Whatever he has been part of, I need to see it with my own eyes, not hear about it later. Devin raised his hand slightly. Also come. Zara looked at him. This is not a vote. Noted, he said. Still coming. She looked at both of them, at the set of Sloan's jaw and the determined steadiness in Nan's eyes. He had been pushed around for years, and he was choosing, in this booth in this diner, to stop. It was not a complicated or dramatic choice. It was just a choice made quietly, with full knowledge of what it meant. She understood it. She could not argue with it. If you come, she said, you do exactly what I say when I say it. No questions in the moment. Questions after, as many as you want, but not during. They both nodded. Some of what you see and hear you will need to hold. There are things I carry that are not mine alone to share. If that is a problem, it's not, Sloan said. Devin shook his head, but Zara looked at them both for a long moment. We leave at 4 in the morning, she said. Sloan drives. Devin navigates. Get some sleep. Devin was already pulling up maps. Sloan was already reaching for her keys. Neither of them looked afraid in the way people look afraid when they have not thought something through. They looked the way people look when they have thought something through and decided anyway. Zara looked at her coffee. She went home and unlocked the wooden box and took out the photograph. The two of them in front of a chain-link gate, both younger than felt possible now, both in uniform. The same patch on the same sleeve. She held it for a while. Then she put it back, closed the box, set her alarm for 3:15. Lay down on the floor because the couch was further away, and she did not want to be far from the floor tonight. She wanted to feel the ground under her. Eli was alive. Tomorrow she was going to do something about that. She closed her eyes and slept. They left at 4 in the morning. No ceremony. Sloan pulled her SUV around to the side of Zara's building, and Devin was already in the back seat with 2 coffees balanced on his knees and a paper road atlas he had bought at an all-night gas station. Paper, not digital. Zara had told him to do that, and he had done it without asking why, which told her something about where he was now compared to where he had been 3 weeks ago when she first walked into that gym. She got in the passenger seat with a bag she had packed alone. It was not heavy. That was the thing, traveling the way she had been trained to travel. You learned early that most things you thought you needed, you did not. You learned to carry only what you would actually use. Sloan pulled out of the lot. The city was still dark, streets empty. Traffic lights cycling through their sequences for nobody. The particular quiet of 4 in the morning in a place that was usually loud. The quiet that feels less like peace and more like the world holding its breath. Devon passed a coffee forward. Zara took it. 13 hours, he said. Roughly, she said. Do we have a plan? She looked out the window at the dark street moving past. We have an approach. Is that different from a plan? A plan assumes you know what you're walking into. She drank some coffee. An approach assumes you don't. Devon sat back and thought about that. Sloan drove. The city gave way to highway, and the highway gave way to the particular flatness of the country opening up and the sky going enormous overhead. They took turns at the wheel, Sloan first. Then Devon, then Zara, who drove the long middle stretch rich while the other two slept, the landscape around her flat and brown and going on forever in every direction under a sky that was starting to lighten at the very edges. She drove and thought in the organized way she had been trained to think. Columns. What she knew, what she suspected, what she needed to find out, what she was prepared to do if the situation required things she had not fully mapped yet. She had explained the necessary parts at the diner the night before. During the drive, she explained more, not everything, but more about Eli and the program in Shaw and the way certain kinds of power operated, not in daylight and not in official language, but in the gaps between official things, in the space where paperwork ended and accountability simply did not exist, because no one with authority had decided to look. Devon listened with his eyes tracking the road through the windshield, even though Zara was driving. The listening of someone filing information carefully. Sloan listened differently, quieter, matching what she was hearing against things she had half known for years without having the framework to understand them. My uncle, she said at one point. Not a question, just 2 words placed carefully into the silence. A contact point, Zara said. Not the center of the operation, but connected to it, used for it. Sloan looked out her window at the passing landscape. How long has he been part of it? I don't know exactly. Long enough that it became normal to him. That happens. She kept her eyes on the road. People make one choice that compromises them, and the next choice is easier because the first one is already made. After enough choices, you stop counting them. Sloan was quiet for a long time after that, then almost to herself. He taught me how to fall without getting hurt. That was the first thing he ever showed me on a mat. How to fall safely. She turned back to the window. I've been thinking about that a lot this week. Nobody responded, because there was nothing to add to it. They reached Perst at 6:17 in the evening, Nevada. The light coming in at a low angle that turned everything gold on one side and deep shadow on the other. The GPS pointed to a turnoff from a state highway, unmarked, a dirt road that split away from the asphalt like an afterthought and disappeared over a shallow rise. Sloan killed the headlights half a mile out, but pulled off the road onto a flat section of ground behind a natural rise in the terrain and stopped. They sat. Through the windshield and the velote below a facility. From that distance, it looked like what the official record said it was. Decommissioned. Abandoned since 2011. A cluster of concrete structures behind chain link, fencing gone orange with rust. A water tower with paint peeling in long strips, a loading dock sitting empty in the last of the evening light. No vehicles visible, no movement, nothing happening. Zara looked at it for 45 seconds without speaking. Active, she said. Devon leaned forward from the back seat. It looks completely empty, she pointed. The fence line. See where the rust breaks near the east corner? It breaks in the same place consistently, which means something passes through there on a regular schedule. Animals don't create that pattern. People do. She moved her saw slightly. The water tower structural supports have been recently reinforced. Fresh concrete at the base, lighter color than everything around it. You don't reinforce a structure you've genuinely walked away from. She looked at the loading dock, and the dock is clean. It's desert conditions over 13 years, deposit material, wind-driven debris, sand accumulation, biological growth on concrete. That dock has been cleared recently. Within weeks, Devon stared at the facility, then at her. I didn't see any of that. I know, she said, not unkindly, just true. She looked at the image of Eli on her phone one more time. Put it away. Here is what we are going to do, she said. She walked them through it. Briefly, specifically, what she needed from each of them and what she needed them not to do. Devon asked one question. Sloan asked none. They got out of the car. They approached from the east, Zara first. Devon and Sloane behind her, separated by 30 feet, mirroring her path exactly as she had told them to do. She moved with a low center of gravity and deliberate foot placement, each step chosen before it was taken. Not fast. Fast was for when you had already been seen. Until then, deliberate. The ground crunched slightly underfoot. Nothing to be done about that. She moved anyway. At 200 feet from the fence, she stopped and raised one hand. They stopped. She watched for 40 seconds. Nothing moved inside the perimeter. No patrol pattern. No response to sound. Then a section self-defense near the east corner began to move. Sliding back. Mechanized. Quiet. An opening wide enough for 3 people to walk through side by side. Nobody came through from the other side. It was simply open. Devon was close behind her now. "They know we're here," he said quietly. "Yes," she said. A pause. "That's either very good or very bad." "It's information," she said. "Move." She walked through the gate. The facility was dim inside. Motion sensors clicked on overhead in sequence as they moved through the main corridor, lights triggering ahead of them and behind them, the building tracking their movement through it. The effect was strange, being announced to an empty space by the space itself. The architecture was old and functional. Concrete floors, narrow metal doors, institutional walls in colors that had stopped meaning anything decades ago, low ceilings, hallways that turned without much warning, but not neglected. That was the thing felt once you were inside it. Beneath the aesthetics of abandonment, the infrastructure was maintained and current. Climate control humming somewhere in the walls, lighting systems that had been replaced recently, floors that had been swept in a regular pattern. Sloane walked close behind Zara, slightly to her right. She could feel the element adjusting to the space, getting quieter, smaller, the way people do when they are inside something they do not understand and have decided to trust the person who does. At the end of the main corridor, a door opened. A man stepped out, plain dark clothing, no insignia, work boots, compact and late 40s, with a face that had been in difficult outdoor conditions long enough to become permanent. Close-cropped hair going silver at the temples. A scar running along his jaw, healed clean and old. The same man from the gym. Wednesday morning. Standing inside the side door for 3 seconds, looking at her across the empty mat, then leaving. He looked at her now across the dim corridor. "You made good time," he said. "Who are you?" Zara said. He glanced at Devon and Sloane briefly. Back to her. "You brought people. Answer the question." A pause. Not evasion. The pause of a man deciding where to begin with something that has a long beginning. "Webb Tarrant," he says as Zara went still. Webb Tarrant had been in her unit. He had trained alongside her and Eli for 6 months before the program restructured and reassigned people. He had shipped to a different theater. She had been told, 18 months into her own deployment, that he was dead. Different operation. Different location. The same era of her that the government had quietly filed under things that did not officially happen. She had mourned him. Not loudly. Not with ceremony. The way you mourn people in that work, which is mostly alone and mostly by continuing to do the work anyway, because that is what they would have wanted and because stoppings is not an option you have. She looked at him now. She had not expected to have to unmourning him. She had not known that was a thing a person could be required to do. "You sent the photo," she said. "Yes. You've been inside Shaw's network. 3 years," he said it evenly. The voice of a man who has accepted a long, difficult road by deciding it was the only road available to him. "I went in voluntarily, after I found out what happened to Eli, after I understood what the program had become, after official oversight was removed." He looked at her steadily. "I have been building what we need to take it apart. Financial records, operational logs, communication trails going back 6 years, names." He paused, but needed someone outside the network to move it. Someone Shaw could not make disappear quietly. Zara looked at him. "You made me visible," she said. "The gym. You knew about Briggs's connection to Shaw. You knew a public challenge match with footage would spread if I—" She stopped. Looked at him with something that was not quite anger, because anger was not the most accurate word for it. "You built the entire board and put me on it." "I found a location where the board already existed," he said. "I didn't make you walk in. I didn't make you accept the challenge. I didn't make you go back 3 days after the first session when every signal in that room told you to leave. But you knew I would. I knew who you were," he said. Yes, the corridor was quiet. Devon and Sloane had not moved. Devon's jaw was set. Sloane's arms were crossed, both of them listening. You made that decision without asking me, Zara said. Flat, clear. You put Devin and Sloane into this without their knowledge. I know, he said. Those are not small things. No, he said, they are not. She held his gaze. After this is done, if we are both standing on the other side of it, you and I are going to have a completely different conversation. Fair, he said. That is not forgiveness, she said. I know what it is, he said. A moment. Then, where is my brother? Webb turned and walked. They followed. He talked as they moved through the facility, quietly and without drama. 3 years of accumulated understanding compressed into the time it took to walk from one end of the building to another. Project Ironville had not ended when the official announcement said it ended. It had transformed. When government oversight became inconvenient for certain outcomes, Shaw had moved the operational core into private contracting, shell companies, entities that looked legitimate on paper and moved money through legitimate channels into work that was not legitimate. The gym was one of many contact points across the country, places that provided cover for meetings and transfers and communications that could not appear in any official record. Briggs had been recruited 8 years ago, not an ideological convert. A practical man who needed money and was offered it and had made the first compromising choice that led to all the others. The operatives Shaw used were people like Eli, people who existed in the gaps between official records, who had skills and no public identity, who could be deployed and recalled without generating documentation. Zara listened to all of it. She did not ask questions yet. There would be time for questions, or there would not. Either way, she kept walking. They went down a staircase, then another. The facility went deeper than its exterior suggested. The lower levels were more recently maintained, better lighting, cleaner air, the hum of active servers somewhere in the walls. Webb stopped at a reinforced metal door. A security panel to the right. Current technology set into aging concrete. He heaped his palms on the scanner. A light moved across it. The door opened. The command center was not large, but it was dense with information. Screens along 2 walls, a central table surrounded by chairs. Equipment that had been updated recently enough to still look current. Satellite imagery on 3 screens. Data columns running on 2 more. Camera feeds across the bottom row showing interior and exterior views of the facility mapped in real time. Zara took it in quickly. And then she saw who was at the head of the table, Colonel Aldrich Shaw, 61 years old, silver-haired, suit that fit the way suits fit when they have been made for a specific body by someone who understood that body. He sat with the posture of 4 decades of being the person in every room that everyone else oriented toward. His hands were folded on the table. His expression was the expression of a man performing patience he has had plenty of practice performing. He looked at Zara with the specific quality of attention she had felt from him years ago across other rooms, when she had been inside the program and he had been at its edges. Assessment. The constant recalibration of a man who collected information about people the way other men collected other things. Sergeant Cole, he said. Her old rank, used easily like the years between had been brief administrative gap. Sit down. She'd not sit. Where is Eli, she said. Shaw's eyes moved briefly to Devin and Sloane. Back to her. Your companions were not part of the invitation. They go where I go, she said. He considered that for a moment. You went to Tolliver, yes. Ray knows some things, he said. Not everything. He has never had the full picture, despite believing otherwise. He tilted his head slightly. What did he tell you enough, she said. Shaw unfolded his hands. Your brother is secure. He has been treated well. He has been doing valuable work. A measured pause. He is currently at a facility in Arizona. Zafroba looked at the camera feeds along the bottom of the screen wall. She went through them methodically, one at a time. Interior feeds, sublevels, every frame. Shaw watched her do it. His expression did not change. 3rd screen from the left. Bottom row. A room, small. Concrete walls. Single overhead light. A man sitting on the floor with his back against the far wall and his eyes closed, sitting with the particular stillness of someone who has been waiting for a long time and has made a kind of peace with the waiting that does not mean surrender, just endurance. The endurance of someone who has not given up but has learned to hold on without burning everything in the holding. She knew that posture. She had grown up watching that posture. Late nights in their mother's house, long car trips, waiting rooms of various kinds. The specific way her brother sat when he had settled into patience. Shaw said Arizona. The label at the bottom of the camera feed. Sublevel B2. Interior. He was here. He had been here the entire time. She looked at Shaw. He held her gaze. And for the first time, she saw something behind his carefully maintained expression that she recognized. He had not expected her to read the feeds that fast. He had expected to have more time before this particular moment arrived. B2, she said. Shaw said nothing. She looked at Webb. I know, Webb said. He was already moving toward the main console. Why I chose this location. His hands moved across the interface with the speed of someone executing a sequence they have rehearsed until it lives in the body. 60 seconds. 4 operatives were positioned near the walls. She had noted them when she walked in. She had spent the entire conversation tracking them. Shaw's eyes moved to the 2 closest. They moved toward Devon and Sloan. Zara was already moving. She crossed the distance to the first operative before his hand reached Devon's shoulder. The joint lock she applied was small and specific, the kind that uses the body's own structure against itself. Maximum result from minimum force. And the man went down and stayed there with a sound that was mostly surprise. The second operative had pivoted toward Sloan. Zara used his own rotation. His weight was already committed in a direction. She simply extended that direction further than he's intended and removed his base at the ankle, and the floor received him with the flat certainty that floors have. She did not injure either of them seriously. She did not need to. Devon had done something she had not told him to do. He had grabbed a chair, not as a weapon, as a barrier. He held it between himself, the nearest remaining operative, and simply occupied space with it, turning himself into an obstacle that required solving. It was exactly the right instinct for someone with his training level. You use what you have. You find the thing you can contribute. Sloan pressed herself against the wall and stayed out of the geometry. Also right. Zarsa moved through the remaining 2 operatives with the focused efficiency of someone for whom this is not remarkable, not performance, simply a problem being solved. A pressure point at the side of the neck. A takedown that controlled the descent. 2 people on the floor, no body seriously hurt. The whole thing under 90 seconds. She was breathing harder when it was finished, not much harder, some. Done, Webb said from the console. He held up a hard drive. Everything, he said. Financial records, operational logs, personnel files, communication records 6 years back. Everything I've spent 3 years putting together. He looked at her. And 2 copies all repairs transmitted before we walk through the gate. This is the 3rd. She crossed to him, took the drive, looked at it. 3 years of Webb's life in her hand. She looked at him for a moment, not forgiveness, not yet, but something. Good, she said. She turned to Devon and Sloan. Devon had set the chair down. His hands were shaking slightly. He was looking at the operatives on the floor with the expression of someone who has just seen something real for the first time and is working out how to file it. Are you okay? She said. Define okay, he said, standing, not hurt. Then technically yes, he said. Sloan, very still, not frightened still, processing still, the face of someone going inward to find the ground. Zara turned to Shaw. He had not moved, had not reached for anything, had not called out. His hands were still on the table, and his expression had settled into something she had not seen on him before. Not defeat, something more specific than that. The expression of a man who has spent his entire career being the person who calculated everyone else's future and is experiencing, for the first time, the view from inside someone else's calculation. I want to ask you something, she said. She moved to the table, stood across from him. You've been running this operation for years, using people who officially don't exist for work that officially doesn't happen. She held his gaze. Do you ever think about them specifically? Not as assets. Not as operational resources, as people, their names, what they were before you decided what they would become. Shaw looked at her. The work requires difficult choices. The security of no, she said, quiet and clear. That is what you tell yourself so you don't have to answer the question. I asked if you think about them. He was silent. My brother had a name before he had a designation, she said. He had a life before you decided it was useful to you. He had a sister who spent 5 years believing he was dead. She leaned forward slightly. You made that choice. Not because you had to, because it was convenient. And you have been making choices like that for so long that you stopped knowing the differences between a choice and a necessity. Shaw's jaw was tight. You don't understand the full scope of what I understand enough, she said. Your offer, The 1 year, my answer is no. It was no on the drive here. It was no before I left the city. It was no 5 years ago when I first started understanding what had happened. She straightened. But I want you to understand something before I walk out of this room, she said. I am not leaving empty-handed, and I am not leaving afraid of you. Those things are finished. Shaw looked at Webb. Something passed between them. The specific communication of two people who have been in proximity for years and understand each other's meanings without requiring words. What Shaw's look said was, you did this. What? Looked at the two operatives still on the floor, at Devon with his chair, at Zara. For the first time, he had nothing to say. Zara took the keycard from Webb's hand. B2, she said. She walked to the door. The staircase to B2 was at the end of a corridor she had not been through before. Metal steps. Their footsteps rang on them as they went down. The sound traveled ahead, announcing them to whatever was below. B2 was a single hallway, 4 doors. The third one had light showing underneath it. Zara stood in front of that door. She put her hand flat against the metal just for a moment. One breath in, one breath out. She opened it. The room was small. A cot against one wall. A metal table with a single chair, one overhead light. The absence of cruelty in the form of bare necessity. Nothing extra, nothing taken away. Eli was sitting on the floor with his back against the far wall and his eyes closed. He heard the door. He did not move immediately. The specific discipline of someone who has learned inside a long while not to react to sounds until they have more information, until they know what the sound means. He opened his eyes. He looked at Zara. He looked at Devon and Sloane behind her in the doorway. He looked back at Zara. His face did something that was not a performance, not relief expressed for anyone watching, something smaller and more specific. The reconfiguration of a person who has been holding a particular weight for so long that when the weight lifts, they do not know immediately how to hold themselves without it. His eyes went to her left wrist, the scar shaped like the letter L. You still have that, he said. His voice was rougher than she remembered. Lower. The voice of someone who had not talked much in a long time and whose vocal cords had quietly adjusted to the silence. I never took it off, she said. She crossed the room. He stood as she reached him. They stood close together in the small space, and for a moment they were just two people who had been separated by a lie for 5 years, standing close enough to know the other one was real. She did not say anything, neither did he. Some things do not need language. Some things language would actually make smaller by attempting to contain them. She stepped back first, looked at him properly, taking in inventory the way she could not help taking inventory. Thinner. The sharpness in his eyes that had always been there was still there, but it had a different quality now. The quality of something that has been used past its ideal conditions and is still working. Still sharp, changed by the use. He would carry what these years had cost him for a long time. So would she. That was just true. How long have you known? He said. 9 days, she said. Since the photo. He nodded. Webb. Yes. He looked past her at Devon and Sloane still in the doorway. Devon with his hands in his jacket pockets, giving them space. Sloane with her arms at her sides, watching with a careful attention of someone filing everything. Friends? Eli said. New one, Zara said. The corner of his mouth moved. Almost good, he said. He looked at Devon specifically. You're the one who filmed it. Devon blinked. You know about the video? I've been in a cell, Eli said. Not off the internet entirely. These almost smile again. Something warming behind it. The part where you grabbed the chair. In the command center. Devon looked slightly alarmed. You saw that already? Webb has cameras. Eli looked at Zaza. I like him. I know, she said. Let's go, he said. They came up from B2 through the facility and out through the main entrance into the Nevada evening, which had gone fully dark while they were inside. The sky was enormous and clear and dense with stars in the way it only is when you are far enough from city light that the sky can actually show you what it is. Webb was outside. He had walked Shaw out ahead of them. Shaw stood a few feet from the main entrance with his hands in his jacket pockets. 2 of his operatives, the one still mobile, stood at a distance behind him. The others were still inside. Shaw looked at Eli. Eli looked at Shaw. 5 seconds. Then Eli looked away. That was its own language, its own complete symbol. Addressed Shaw with the quiet of someone who has rehearsed this moment across 3 years and has arrived at a version of it he can live with. Everything has been transmitted, he said. Financial records. Operational logs, personnel files. Kumakitas Chick, 6 years back, 3 independent recipients, time delivery. If anything happens to any of us in the next 48 hours, it publishes simultaneously across multiple channels and gets forwarded to 7 specific people in federal oversight who have been waiting for exactly this kind of material. He held Shaw's gaze. You understand what I'm describing. Shaw was quiet. You can go tonight, Webb said. This location, nobody gets hurt, nobody gets followed, but the clock is running. And the people who have what I sent are patient. They will move when the time is correct, and they will move correctly. Shaw looked at Zara. He looked at her for a long time. Not with anger, not with threat, with the specific expression of a man who has spent decades being the person who calculated everyone else's future, and is standing in the moment when that capacity has been removed from him. When the thing he built his identity around is simply no longer available. You were always the harder one, he said. I know, she said. He turned, walked to a vehicle that had been staged behind the far corner of the facility. His operatives followed. The vehicle moved out of the compound, headlights coming on when it hit the dirt road and disappeared over the ridge. The facility was quiet. EC stood beside Zara. He watched the headlights until they were gone. Then he looked at the sky. Devon sat down on the concrete step by the entrance. I need to sit down, Edesid, he said. You are sitting down, Sloan said. Need to sit down for approximately 1 year, he said. Eli looked at him, then at Zara. Something in his expression asked a question. He grabbed a chair, she said. Against trained operatives, Eli said. He held it in front of himself and took up space. Eli looked at Devon again. Devon looked back at him. Good instinct, Eli said. Devon made a sound, something between a laugh and an exhale that had been waiting to happen for several hours. They drove through the night. Eli was in the back with Devon. Well, Sloan drove. Zara rode passenger. Nobody talked much in the first hour. The silence that comes after a thing has happened, and the body and mind are still catching up to each other. She had known that silence before. It always felt the same. Heavy and necessary, and underneath both of those things, clean. After a while, Devon fell asleep against the window with his mouth slightly open. Sloan drove with both hands on the wheel and her eyes forward and her thoughts wherever they were. Eli looked out at the dark landscape for a long time. The chair thing, he said quietly. He really just picked up a chair. He really just picked up a chair, she said. How long has he been training? About 2 months, when you count the time at Briggs. Eli was quiet. Then in her, he meant at Sloan Burble. For 4 years, her owned the gym. The one connected to Shaw. Yes, he thought about that. She came anyway. He looked at Sloan's profile. The steadiness of her hands on the wheel. The set of her jaw. Then he looked back at the window. You found good people, he said. They found me, she said. I was just trying to train. She felt him look at her. Were you? He said. She did not answer that, because the true answer was complicated, and the night was dark and long, and some things could wait. 6 weeks later, Briggs Combat Academy had a for lease sign in the window. Harlan Briggs had not left quietly, but he had left. Sloan had provided documentations to the state licensing board, and to a journalist who covered institutional misconduct, and had been looking for exactly this material for exactly this kind of story. The story ran, local at first, then picked up. Not a large story, but accurate and specific and carefully sourced. The connection between Briggs and Shaw's network was a thread that the right people pulled with the right material in hand. It moved slowly. These things always moved slowly, but it moved in one direction and did not stop. Brett Kane did not come back to the gym. He resurfaced 3 weeks later on social media. One post, no explanation. No performance of accountability. Just, I lost. Working on understanding what that means. It was the most honest thing she had ever seen from him, and it got more response than anything else he had posted in a year. Sloan signed the new lease on a Tuesday morning. Devon witnessed it. She had chosen the space because it was the same building, the same mat, the same square footage she had trained in since she was 24 years old. She was not going to let what her uncle had made of it be the final meaning of it. They painted the walls on a Saturday, specific white, the white of something new rather than something covered over. The old sign came down Sunday afternoon. The new one went up before the evening was out. Zachin BJJ. Devon had looked at it with his head tilted. Not something more dramatic? No, Sloan said. Everything good gets built from a foundation. That is what this is. He had nodded and let it go. The first class at Foundation BJJ had 31 students. People Zara recognized from Briggs' roster. People who had stayed through all of it and were here now, because this was what they had wanted the thing to be all along. People she had never seen, who had driven an hour after finding the gym online, or after seeing a video on their phone, or after hearing from someone who had been there that this place was trying to be something worth showing up for. Sloan talked. Devon insisted. Zara sat on the bench along the wall and watched. She watched Devon show a new student how to fall safely, breaking the movement into pieces small enough to be learned. His patience with it came from having been the person who did not know, from remembering what it felt like to be new in a space and have no one help you find your footing. He was not the most technically advanced person in the room. He had been a white belt 2 months ago, but he knew something more immediately useful than technique for this particular work. He knew what it was like to feel small in a space that was supposed to be welcoming and wasn't. And that knowledge, specific and earned, made him better at this than someone with 10 years of mat time and no memory of not knowing. Elias was in the class. He had not said anything about his level at sign-in. Listed himself as a beginner. Sloan had looked at his intake form and then looked at him, and he had shrugged in a way that said he just wanted to train. She had nodded in a way that said she understood completely. He was working in the far corner with a woman who was genuinely new, who had clearly never been on a mat before, and was still working out how to move in the space. Eli was coaching quietly, his voice low. When she made a mistake, he did not announce it. He repositioned her hand, her foot, her weight distribution, and let the correct position speak for itself. Zara watched him do that. She thought about the 5 years. Not for the first time. Not for the last time. She would think about them many more times before she was finished with them, if she was ever finished with them, which she was not sure was a realistic expectation. Some things you do not get finished with. You just get better at carrying them in a way that lets you keep moving. He was here. He was on a mat in a room that was trying to be decent. His hands were helping someone find their balance. That was not everything, but it was real, and it was true, and it was something she could look at without looking away. After class, a new student approached her, young woman, maybe 20. First time on a mat from the look of her, still navigating the particular self-consciousness of being a beginner in a physical space. She stopped in front of Zasra with the expression of someone who had watched the video and come here because of it, and was now standing in front of the person from the video and not sure what to do with that. "What belt are you?" she said. Zara looked at her. "I'm still learning." The woman blinked. "But you're one of the instructors, yes. How can you be teaching if you're still learning?" Zara thought about that honestly. Because learning doesn't end. The day you decide you finished learning is usually the day you start getting worse. She looked at the mat. At all the people in the room at their various stages of understanding something difficult. The best people I ever trained with were the ones who kept the feeling of not knowing alive in themselves. Who used it. Carried it forward instead of leaving it behind. She then looked back at the young woman. "That's what I'm trying to do." The woman stood with that for a moment to, "Can I come to the next class?" she said. "Schedule is on the wall," Zara said. The woman smiled, left that evening after the room had emptied and Sloan had locked up. Zara and Ali sat on the steps outside the building. The street was ordinary, traffic moving, lights on in the buildings across the road. People coming home from wherever people come home from at that hour. The normal texture of a city in the middle of its evening, indifferent to what had happened 3 weeks ago in a desert facility in Nevada, indifferent in the way that life is always indifferent to the events happening inside it. Eli had his elbows on his knees. He was looking at the street. "I thought about you," he said. "A lot, all of it." "I know," she said. "I didn't know what they told you, whether you believed it." "I didn't want to believe it," she said, "but I didn't have anything else to hold on to for a long time." He was quiet. "You held on to the scar," he said. She looked at her left wrist. The L, small and faded, still there. "It wasn't on purpose at first," she said. "I just never got it removed. And then it was on purpose," she agreed. The traffic moved past. A couple walking, a man on a bicycle. The unremarkable ongoing zimbas of people living their lives in the way lives get lived, mostly without drama, mostly in the small, ordinary moments that accumulate into something. "Webb," Eli said. "Yes, what happens with him?" He did what he did, she said. He also spent 3 years inside something very dark to collect what we needed. Both of those things are true. She looked at the street. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with both of them being true at the same time. Eli nodded. Fair, Shaw, he said after a moment. Ray Tolliver made contact with the right people 2 weeks ago. He should have done it 2 years ago, and he did not, and he is going to have to live with that. But he did it. She watched a car turn at the corner. The investigation moves the way these things move. Not fast, not dramatically, but Eli absorbed that. And us, he said. What happens to us? She looked. We show up. She looked at him. He turned to that Ovat. That's it? That was always it, she said. We just lost it for a while. He looked at the street for a moment. Then at the door behind them, through which the mat was visible, empty and clean and ready for tomorrow. Okay, he said. Yeah, they sat in the evening for a while longer without talking. Two people who had been separated by a deliberate lie for 5 years, sitting on ordinary steps in front of a building where something decent was being built. The city made its sounds around them. Inside, the mat was clean. Tomorrow, there would be people on it, learning to fall, getting back up, learning that the distance between who you are and who you could become is mostly just time and work and the decision to keep returning to the thing. Zara had known that for a long time. She just needed to be reminded sometimes. She looked at the door. She was ready.